annual NostraDumbass Predictions for the season, where we go through all the divisions, pick our division winners, talk about our wild cards, go directly to the World Series because I can't
Yeah, we're not
possibly
doing it.
fathom all the different possible combinations of wild card, division series, championship series. We'll just jump right to the World Series and our World Series champion. Let's talk about our MVP for both leagues, Cy Young, and Rookies of the Year. So I think we should just start as we normally do, go across the country, starting in the East. And I'll start with the American League East.
Woo woo! Let's go.
Well, this is always one of the most talked about league divisions, just because it happens to be in the East Coast. I'm always annoyed by that. I think, as most people are across the country that are not on the East, but the East Coast bias is real. Unfortunately for the New York Yankees, another reality is that they just lost 60% of their rotation to injury this spring, which is amazing. I'm not picking the New York Yankees to win the AL East, as I believe they would have been a prohibitive favorite going into this season, if not for injuries to three of their starting pitchers. Severino, I know Severino, I'm not sure how long he's out, but I guess I don't really care. I just know that they have three guys, including Carlos Rodon, who may or not be out long term, but we all know his long term history. Frankie Montas is the other guy that I think he blew out his elbow this spring. So not a good way to start out the spring. Not a good way to get me to predict you to win. Red Sox are typically a prohibitive favorite, except for the last couple of years where they seem to be taking the same strategy as the Cubs have, being top four valued franchise in all of baseball, but not finding a way to spend adequate money and resources on your team to actually compete every year. It's kind of scary how mirrored image the Cubs and Red Sox have been over the last really 10 plus years in their business strategies. So I'm not picking the Red Sox. I struggled with the Rays. I always struggle with the Rays because they always do much better than anyone thinks. They have the magic. They do the extra 2%. They do everything they can and are somehow always competitive, but I did not pick them to win the division. Baltimore is another interesting team that actually they increased their win total by 31 games last year. So they were in the wild card hunt throughout the second half of the
Yeah.
season last year. So that was a really surprising team that's only getting stronger actually. But my pick is going to be the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe for the second year in a row. Or I at least had them in the playoffs last year. Just the young talent on that team, what they've assembled, I think it's time. It's time for them to finally ascend to the top of that division and possibly much further. But we'll get to that later.
Um, this is not a good sign
Oh, no.
because we are starting off in agreement, and
Just
I'm
like
picking the
last year, we
blue. I didn't pick the Blue Jays last year, but you did, I think, to win the division. I had them
well,
in
we
the
had
wild card,
the whole thing
but
with last year is we picked almost the same teams in every division. So we got to get.
yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen this year. I made some wild turns, so I think we're going to be okay. But this is not a good start if we're picking the same team in the first division already.
But what I'll say is I am picking the Blue Jays. I have another pick similar to the Blue Jays pick just because
Mm.
it's either now or never.
Yeah,
And I this
I
is
don't know about
if
never. They're
they
pretty young still, but
well,
it seems like
I just
they should be there.
yeah, if they don't win the division this year, I don't believe they will win the division with this current group.
Mm.
And so I called it. I actually picked them 2 years ago as like almost like a sleeper pick because they looked so good already. They didn't quite have the gusto then, but I think this is their year.
All
And I
right.
think the other team, like you mentioned, out of the division is I'm really hot on the Orioles. I think they are going to make some major fucking noise this year throughout the league because you got to remember, folks. I'm making these picks with the idea that we're not in a weighted schedule anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to play outside your division a lot more. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how these teams thrive. So
I think,
anyway, we are in agreement.
I feel like you've talked about that, the balance versus the unbalanced schedule, how what an effect that's going to have going for. I feel like you've been talking about that more than most places I've read about. So I think we're going to hear that story certainly as we get deeper into the season. And I think you're ahead of the curve on thinking that way. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you, sir.
Since I started out with my picks for the AL East, why don't you start out with your picks for the NL East?
All right, the NL East. Well, this is also like the monster division, just on the
Mm,
National League side. But I'm going to
some
start at the
big payrolls
bottom.
over there.
Yeah, I'm going to start at the bottom with what we know is not going to happen. We know the Nationals are not going to do anything.
I actually
They
forgot about the
are,
Nationals.
yeah, they are a blister. They are as disgusting as the A's are on the American League side when it
Yet they
comes
are
to
just
running a
what,
baseball.
they're just 4 years removed from a World Series championship. So that's kind of an
Yeah.
amazing descent.
Well, it is like an NL East other team, the Marlins, who used to like to win and then just sell the team away and then
Mm.
rebuild and win like 7 years later again. Um, but yeah, definitely the Nationals are out. They are kind of like what you just mentioned with Cincinnati. I bet they're paying Trey Turner right now more money than they are someone who's on their current active roster. So interesting things there in the Nationals. I'm gonna take a big name out of the running right away. I don't think the Mets are gonna do jack shit this year.
Oh,
They've
wow.
got the bloated payroll. They're already nursing major injuries to key players
Yeah,
coming out of
that
spring
was
training.
probably the biggest story out of the World Baseball Classic is the Mets losing Edwin Diaz in a celebration after a win. Unfortunate for him. He's the highest paid reliever in history, I think, and he's not even going to play this season due to a knee injury. He's suffered in a exhibition game essentially during a celebration. The Mets
Yeah,
are going to Mets. It couldn't have happened to a better franchise than the New York Mets.
yes, a lot of money, little result.
Yeah, I think to the tune of it's close to a $500 million. They're in the $400 million range, which is
Yeah,
like twice as
fucking
much as
insane.
the de facto salary cap, which shows what a farce that actually is. But
Yeah,
sorry, Mets.
yeah. Then I think it it kind of turns into a three-team race at that point. And you got the Marlins there who had
Mm.
a really strong second half of the season and are only looking to get better with, even though they are one of the lowest listed value-wise franchises. I think they're
There's
trending up.
there's some talent there.
Uh, there's some real talent there. But then, of course, the two real kings of the division are the Braves and the Phillies. But I got to go with the Phillies, and here's why. The best is still yet to come, and I'm telling you why. They only got hot after they ditched their manager. They didn't
Yeah.
even have a full season of hotness. It sounds like an NBC Bachelor ad. A full
what's
season
going on?
of hotness.
What's going on here?
But like they could easily, they may run away with this division.
They added
They
Trey
are,
Turner. They
yes,
went to the
they
World
are
Series
such,
last year and added Trey Turner.
yes, they are such a great team. Dombrowski has done another juggernaut over there, and damn, like I can't help but pick them. I enjoy most of the players on that team. So Phillies are my pick in the NL East. And
Well,
that's because they haven't even showcased everything yet.
no, this is so annoying because I am also picking the Philadelphia Phillies to win the division, mainly because of what I just mentioned. They made it to the goddamn World Series, and then they added Trey Turner, the possibly the best offensive player in the National League. I was desperately wanting the Cubs to add him in this offseason as they are in desperate need of a shortstop and a better fucking team, and Trey Turner would have helped them in all regards. So yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. This sucks. This is already two divisions where we picked the exact same winner. But for all the reasons you mentioned, I mean, Diamond Dave Dombrowski is not afraid to spend owners' money on win now teams. He has added a
I mean,
lot Bryce Harper is the one issue that they have with the injury. I believe he'll be back fairly early in the season is the prognosis right now. But certainly the center of that team is him. That could easily transfer over to Trey Turner. But my God, with Kyle Schwarber, everything else we talked about, I was skeptical last year because they built like the most incredible offense and didn't really think about defense whatsoever. But apparently defense doesn't matter when you have that much offense. So that blew that theory out of the water because they made it all the way to the World Series. So congrats to Diamond Dave and the Phillies. Really, I mean, I'm wondering if I'm always looking for a reason not to pick the Mets because they're fucking annoying. And Edwin Diaz getting hurt in the World Baseball Classic was classic Mets in a way. Just the bad luck that follows them. That is a major blow. It might not be as crippling as we think or hope, at least for people that don't like the Mets. They might end up being just fine, but somehow I doubt it. They always find a way in mysterious ways to fuck things up. So otherwise, I think they would be a favorite. But Atlanta is always interesting. I think I picked them to win the division last year, and they have so many young players. They've already paid most of their young players, which is a similar strategy that the White Sox have done, but a little more successfully considering they won the World Series 2 years ago. But um, I'm confused about a little bit about the Braves. What if they're gonna on the ascent or maybe not so much? Um, but I think we'll get to them in a little bit when we get to our wild card picks. So they were I kind of hemmed and hawed between them and the actual winner of the division, the Philadelphia Phillies. So I think we should move to our central part of the country. I think we should start with the AL Central, where both of our favorite teams abide. I'm going to go with. Well, I won't start. I won't start off too quickly. I'll let the suspense build up. But
Ooh, I can't wait for this.
The Cleveland Guardians won the division last year. I don't think either of us picked them. Somehow they just do all the little things. It became painfully apparent by the end of last season that they were much better at all the little things than the White Sox were, and hence their division victory. They always find a way to get it done. They had an injury that just came up yesterday, I believe, to Tristan McKenzie. Dr. Sticks, one of the coolest nicknames in all of baseball. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, which is really going to hurt them. I think the way they do it works, but it can't always work. They don't have the same amount of talent as other teams in the division. I think it's going to finally bite them, either injuries or just a little bit of underperformance. What they do is kind of with smoke and mirrors. I mean, it's beautiful fundamental baseball, but it can't always work the way it does for them. And we always see that how they flame out in the playoffs. So I'm not picking the Indians to repeat. The Twins.
The Guardians.
Sorry, I said Guardians first, and I switched it to Indians. But
oh, damn it!
Get over it. The Twins are just always too hurt. They're star players that they have centered around Carlos Correa and especially Byron Buxton. You just can't count on them to be on the field enough. If you had one of those guys and several other core players that you could count on, it'd be one thing. But having two guys that are that notorious for not making it through an entire season, it's not a way to build a team. They also made a curious trade this offseason where they got rid of the batting champ. God damn it, I forgot his name, but they traded him to the Marlins for more pitching, which might be a shrewd maneuver, but I've never seen a team trade away a batting champ, or at least a top. So that's kind of a interesting thing that, I mean, I think it was CC Sabathia last year on a podcast where he actually coined the term weird ass Minnesota Twins. I think it's fucking weird ass Minnesota Twins is actually how he put it. So they're just a weird, I'm glad it's not just our perception. It's inside the industry's perception. That's a weird fucking franchise. And it continues into this year. And I think they're probably going to finish third.
Yeah, that was a Ray, not a Rosarena, a Reyes or something like that is his name, like
Yeah, I
Luis
should have looked it up.
Reyes or something.
It's kind of
It's
embarrassing. I
Luis
don't remember
Reyes.
it, but okay.
Yeah, something like that. Luis
That's right.
Reyes.
He was a fucking weird ass twin, and now he's a weird ass Marlin. So, but we'll get back to the Marlins. You and I already kind of hinted towards that, but of course, my Tigers, things couldn't go any worse
Tell
than
me
they did
that.
last year. They still have Javi Baez. They actually have Spencer Turnbull coming back from Tommy John surgery. Uh, Everything that could go wrong went wrong last year. I still don't think that they're just magically going to turn things around and win the division. I think they'll be hopefully more interesting this year. But yeah, I'm not gonna pick them to win. The the nice thing is we have a healthy Riley Green going into this season. He missed the first couple months last year as he broke his foot in spring training on a foul ball, which was brutal. Spencer Torkelson has a pivotal year in front of him. It's kind of amazing. A second year player who, number one overall draft pick a couple years ago, came up last year and really disappointed in a lot of ways. He got sent down at one point and came back, and he's looked so much better this spring than he did last spring. If you want to read into that, that's at least something positive. We'll see if that actually translates into the regular season, but uh, that is a key. The youth of the Tigers, can they actually live up to the big hype that they've had? And if they can, it might be an interesting team because there are other things they have built around that could actually work. But my God, they need some better luck with injuries and find a way to hit the ball out of the ballpark, as they were horrendous at that. The historically bad offense last year. They did take this for what it's worth. They did lead all the majors this spring in home runs, whatever that means, hitting balls in Lakeland, Florida, and other places in Florida. What that means, but I think they hit 45 home runs, which led the majors this spring. So they certainly did not look anything like that power wise last year in the regular season. So maybe that is a new strategy, hit the ball out of the ballpark, that they might employ. I don't know if it's quite that simple, but hopefully they will. I haven't mentioned the Kansas City Royals
Why
as of yet
bother?
because they're not worth mentioning. They will finish last in this division. But the other team I did not mention, which will lead
Oh
you to
God, here we go.
conclude for the second year in a row, maybe third year in a row,
Your
I am
makeup.
picking the goddamn Chicago White Sox to win the AL Central.
Are you turning into me?
Well, one part of kind of, but one part of that is, of course, the jinx, which always works somehow. You guys haven't won the division. Well, you won it like a couple years ago and then flamed out in the playoffs, but you're, of course, 81 and 81. Very disappointing last year. Did not win the division despite my prediction. But I'm really predicting that you guys are going to win the division because you have so much more goddamn talent than the rest of the division. It is disgusting how much more talent you guys have. It is amazing that you haven't been able to put this shit together and dominated this division over the last several years. So it's time. It is fucking time. You've got TLR out of the way. You've got Leroy Garcia out of the way.
Louis, Lalai,
Hopefully,
whatever his name is,
hopefully we never have to say his name again.
or try to.
You have Pedro Gafal there, who seems to be at least a competent manager that will not make delusional decisions of a of a man that was well past his prime. Maybe there was some mental issues there. There are definitely some physical issues there with TLR. You have all those issues behind you now. Win the goddamn division. It is there for you. I'm so annoyed that you guys aren't winning the division every year. You have this much fucking talent. Get it done. Just get it done. My God.
And I this is my favorite podcast I think of all time from you. But the one thing is we have a better bench this year too. I mean, when you look at it, but despite all that, despite your plea, despite your, I'm going with the reverse jinx. I'm not going to pick the Sox to win the division this year.
Okay.
I
One week ago, less
Yeah,
than 1 week ago. I think it was last Wednesday. We recorded a Sox type thing
yeah.
where you were trying to tell me that the jinx only applies to like only Northside fans think of jinxes.
Well,
Southsiders are impervious to jinx.
I am
So now
impervious
you're
to
using
jinx.
the reverse jinx.
Well, I'm playing along with your script there, your
There's no
dialogue.
script. There's
But
no script on
anyway,
Major League A-holes.
yeah, that's true. Let me say that this is totally unscripted. This is undisputed. Is that the we're
Yeah, something like that.
but
Undisclosed.
undisclosed, whatever? No, it's not. But I'm trying to follow your lead and play up
Okay.
the jinx thing. But I did not pick this pick as a
Wow.
jinx. I picked this pick out of annoyance. And if I was gonna say how the division was gonna end up, I don't know if you're gonna feel good or bad about this, or you're gonna like this, but I actually think the Tigers are gonna finish third this year in the division.
I think that's
I,
possible.
I think it's huge. I think the Twins are gonna, due to injury,
Mhm.
due to not keeping the team on the field, doing what I predicted last season that definitely happened. They have mediocre pitching. They have mediocre fucking pitching.
Well, and that might
They're not
explain
gonna,
the weird ass trade they made in the offseason to bolster that
yeah,
from the Marlins, but
but
I don't
still,
know.
like to your point, they didn't get like they took you take the AL batting champ and you trade him for not like a fucking Jake DeGrom or some shit. Not saying
Yeah.
that's a
He probably
worthy trade, but
he probably fits in at number 2 or 3 in their rotation, but maybe higher than
yeah.
that, but
But you look at it like that. But um, I'm picking the Guardians to win the division, and
mm.
it's a painful pick, but they are like when Ozzie Guillen was manager of the Twins. They're like the Piranhas. They're just like you said. They are, and I don't know. I can't pick the White Sox right now because I don't know. I,
Oh,
I I
wow.
I've seen a better spring training. I've heard about basic things being done in spring training that is fucking ridiculous that they weren't done before.
They're being
Like,
applauded for doing the fundamentals in spring training.
yes, yes. I
Ooh,
mean,
they're
like
doing drills. Wow.
it shakes my foundations, like to hear shit like that. And like I just can't fully commit. Like I'm obviously fully committed to the baseball season. I'm jacked up. I can't wait for 6:08 on
You can't
Thursday
commit to a
against.
meaningless prediction. Wow.
But I have to just go with yeah, that's true, right? I just for sake of changing shit up a little bit too. Like I
Okay.
really respect what the Guardians do over there. I really do. I don't like them
Wow.
at all. I have no
No.
love for anyone in the division, but I have respect for what Terry Francona does with the Cleveland Guardians. And I think
Mm.
if he had retired and there was another manager, there's no way I would have done that pick. I probably would have done the Homer pick, but I'm going with the Guardians. They do everything right. I love crazy ass fucking Jaws Naylor because he looks like Jaws from the freaking
James
James
Bond?
Bond movie. Yeah,
Wow.
Josh Naylor's got a Jaws feel to him. I love Jaws Naylor. I'd even draft him on Saturday. I
Uh,
mean, but
we'll talk about that.
foreshadowing. But anyway, I'm going with the Guardians. I think the
They do
Sox.
have the best player in the American League in Jose Ramirez, so I failed to mention that in my synopsis, but there's
They got
reason
a
to.
pretty good. They got a Shane Bieber too, and McKenzie's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks because of
Okay. First
the
thing I
knee
saw was
strain.
8 weeks, but
So
yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. We'll see where that nets out. But I think they could actually maybe hang around. But they did. I'm pretty certain they did pretty well outside the division last year,
Mm.
where teams like the Twins and Royals did not, and the White Sox fared about 500 outside the division. They actually had a winning record against the East last year. So,
Wow.
um, the Sox will be there, but we'll get to that when we get to the wild card predictions. But I got the Guardians for
Oh,
the AL Central.
okay. All right. Well, why don't you continue with the NL Central?
Oh, the NL Central. Well, let's do this first. Let's just say the Reds are not going to compete from basically what Smitty outlined
Yeah.
earlier in
Not
this
when they're paying Ken
podcast.
Griffey Jr., 53-year-old Ken Griffey Jr., the fourth highest amount of money on their payroll this year, 15 years after he retired. But yeah, I think we can
I think
probably
after
cross off the. Do we need to talk about the Reds or the Pirates ever again this year?
I think the Pirates will be a little bit better, but yeah, no, I have
Mm.
them at the bottom. I have them towards the bottom, but I think I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's much difference between the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Pirates overall in
Wow.
how things are going to fare, especially
Okay.
playing again a balanced schedule versus an unbalanced schedule. I don't think you're gonna see um I think you're gonna see like a lot of trading back and forth. What I do think is gonna happen is the Cardinals are gonna win the division and they're gonna win it by like 8 games, and it's not gonna
Yeah.
be that much of a battle. And they've got they got some talent there, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they fucking do it. I just don't. I look at that and I get annoyed again because we both have two teams in Chicago, and this team 5 hours south of us with is what I don't even know what the ranked city in the country, in the 20s
Well, they're
probably, or
considered a
something.
small market team. They
Yeah,
get actually get extra draft picks because they are considered a small market team. So
yeah. So they just
they
they
have
just
milked
know.
that for all it's worth.
Yeah, they're a well run organization, which always disappoints me to say that we don't fully have that functioning in. We've had at times in Chicago, but sustained success that the Cardinals have had is crazy since they're a small market team. But I like the makeup of the team. I like a certain rookie named Jordan Walker on that team, who I think is
Mm.
gonna make some noise. Got Nolan Arenado, who we were questioning last year how he would fare out, and he was he's fucking gangbusters. I mean,
Yeah, he did pretty
so
well.
yeah, so I like the Cardinals. Um, I like the Cardinals. I think, like I said, I think maybe the Brewers and Cubs will be battling a little more than the Pirates, but I just don't see it because of the amount these guys are playing outside the division. I said, and this was before I started thinking about the having the balanced schedule. I said the Cubs did a very good job at building a team to win that division in the
Mm.
sense of the unbalanced schedule. I wasn't
Yeah,
thinking about it when I made that comment on an earlier
that's
podcast,
interesting. Yeah.
but once you remove that, I don't think, you know, for a team that is valued as the fourth highest, you're 100%. You should be so fucking frustrated that Trey Turner is not your shortstop. But on the plus side, Smitty, Dansby Swanson hit a home run the other day in spring training against the White Sox.
Is
So
that
you got
his?
that going for you. His
Is that
first,
his? Is that his third hit of the spring?
maybe
Or
his third hit, but it's his first home run. So
I did see that he hit a home run, and I was very happy for that. So
so yeah, it was his first hit too. No, but yeah,
pretty
so
close.
but that's my prediction. The Redbirds for the division win handedly.
Well, I agree that the Cardinals do have the best offense by far in the NL Central, but their rotation is what scares me, and it doesn't really make any sense to me how it could be. Is it's led by Adam Wainwright, who I believe is 42 years old now. Uh, the idea that they think that's going to work and is kind of amazing to me. The best rotation in the division is the Brewers, and that's why I'm picking them to win the NL Central. Uh, Corbin Burns and et al. They're gonna just pitch their way through this division through the balanced schedule. I think I'm going to predict a major injury to either Paul Goldschmidt or Nolan Arenado. That'll also lead
Going with the
to
injury.
yeah, that'll also lead to the Cardinals' demise.
You
Uh,
think it will?
it will. I am predicting this. I am NostraDumbass right now. That is why we were doing this. So I'm predicting that there will be some colossal failure by the Cardinals. It will not help the Cubs enough to get over the Brewers, which the Brewers actually suffer from the opposite, the no name offense. but plenty of pitching in the rotation in the bullpen. Um, the Cubs, however, like I said last week, they have confused activity with accomplishment. They've put some major leaguers on the field for the first time in a couple of years, some names that you'll recognize, but I feel like the sum of the parts is much less than the whole. I don't. I'm not sure about the rotation. There's a bunch of twos, threes, and fours. That they those are Mark Stroman and Jameson Tyone. Those are names you recognize, but that's what they spent their money on over the last couple of years. Those are not aces that the Cubs should be fighting for in every free agent class. Um, I'm not sure of that strategy. I don't understand how they think that's going to work, but I think they're going to be more entertaining. I did pay $150 for the MLB package as I'm here in Michigan, so I can watch the Cubs on the Marquee Network. Um, I am far more interested in watching them this year. So yeah, congratulations. They piqued my interest again. I think last year was the least amount of games I watched of a Cubs season in probably 20 years. First of all, moving away from Chicago is pretty easy to get away from them, but I had zero interest in that team halfway through the season, which has never happened. Just how they've run that franchise over the last several years is just disgusting to me. So the fact that they are at least trying to do something, again, I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors what they've done, and mostly for marketing purposes. But I will be watching games. I think they'll be fun. I think they'll be competitive, but I don't think they are nearly to the level of what Milwaukee and St. Louis have. So, but I am going to go with the Brewers over the Cardinals just because of the pitching depth. So I think that leads us to the West. I will start out with the AL West. Weird. It's always a weird division to me. Of course, my A's are there. They refuse to act like a Major League Baseball team, so I won't even consider them. In fact, this might be the last time I speak of the A's this year, unless they move to Vegas or do something else. The way they've run that franchise is not worth my time or any A's fans' time. So I'm not sure they deserve any more airtime on this podcast until they start to act like a Major League Baseball team, as they will finish undoubtedly in fifth place in that division. Unfortunately for the baseball world, fourth place, I believe, will be the Los Angeles Angels once again.
We're in total agreement so far.
the, I think when I hope I called it at the time, I think I referred to it subsequently as the moment Mike Trout re-signed in Los Angeles with the Angels, a baseball tragedy, as he has chosen to play his games in anonymity. I saw him being interviewed before a World Baseball Classic game. I didn't realize it was Mike Trout. Like, honestly, that happened to me. I'm like, I kind of wasn't paying attention. I'm like, oh, who's this fucker? I'm like, oh my God, it's Mike Trout. I didn't even know that. For that to possibly happen to maybe the greatest player in our generation is unconscionable, that he's allowed to live in such a major market too, but such a pathetic franchise as the Angels. Couple that with the idea that Shohei Ohtani has the potential to be the most marketable sports figure across all sports going forward, with his world profile and his incredible resume so far in his major league career. And they're both going to be on a fourth place team. And it just drives me crazy. I cannot wait for the Shohei Ohtani free agent sweepstakes next year. Unfortunately, along those lines, Mike Trout is tied in for the next 50 years. I don't even know how long his contract is, but $430 some million that he chose to take from Artie Moreno and the Angels, and we'll never see him again. Essentially, he's been in one playoff series in his 10 years in the league. 3-0 sweep out of the playoffs immediately. That's the fate of the face of baseball, and the faster Shohei can get out of there, the better. So I hate that franchise so much for being so bad. It'd be cool if they figured it out, but I don't see it. What's interesting about the rest of the division is the Mariners took a large leap forward last year.
Yeah,
Not large enough to get it all done, but I think I'm wondering if they're gonna make it to a wild card, which we'll get to shortly. But the other interesting team in different ways is the Texas Rangers, who have always spent plenty of money on everything but their rotation somehow. They've been able to pay for some of the greatest hitters in the history of baseball and somehow don't get a whole lot to show for that. And a lot of that has to do with them ignoring pitching. They've changed stadiums. That didn't really change things. They bought all the shortstops last year that were on the free agent market.
they
That
sure
didn't
did.
change. That didn't change things. So I think they're going to be probably a third place team once again somehow. So I got, yeah, I kind of did that out of order. I've got the Mariners finishing second, but I've got the defending world champion Houston Astros winning the division again. Mainly, they just have more talent. I mean, that's where I'm going with this. Even though they lost Justin Verlander to free agency, uh, he was a 40-year-old Cy Young Award winner. I think that season kind of came out of nowhere. I'm not sure anyone could predict could certainly predict he was going to be good. I couldn't have predicted he was going to be the best pitcher in the American League. Uh, so that kind of works against them that he is no longer on the roster. But I feel like they are just smarter than the rest of that division. They've figured out ways to amass the most amount of talent in the most efficient way, and they will continue and win the AL West.
Well, a lot of the AL, I have pretty much the same feelings about the AL West that you do. I do have one bold prediction. I believe the Angels will be a more competitive team in
Mm.
2024 because they will do the intelligent move and restock their team with the trade of Otani at the deadline.
Oh wow! So there'll be
So
shit this year, but they'll take care of it next year.
yeah,
I
I
see.
mean, they'll be in a spot where it just only makes sense to trade him. It'll be ridiculous not to because of what they'll be able to bring back into the
That's gonna
organization.
that's probably going to be the most interesting thing about the Angels this year, the trade speculation, because that does make a ton of sense. What could they get for 2 months of Otani?
Yeah, and a whole hell of a lot from a lot of teams,
Boy,
especially maybe some NLS teams that we'll get to in a minute.
mm,
Um, But like you, I think we probably have the division shaped up exact because I put everything in order how I thought it would end up. And I think the Mariners are going to be right there, and we'll get to that in a minute. But to your point, how can you pick against the Astros right now? And
yeah,
you know, adding Jose Abreu only made them better. I mean, even if he's only hitting 15 home runs, he's gonna be driving in a shit ton of those guys on base because he will forego the home run
he
to
can hit.
drive in the RBI.
He
And
knows how to hit the ball when he needs to hit the ball, where he needs to hit the ball.
yes,
It's amazing.
he will hit to the opposite field to he's blue in
Mm,
the face. He knows how to do that and he does it well. That's why he drives in 100 RBIs on a regular basis. So they've only gotten better. It's not the splash of the Phillies and getting Trey Turner, but it's a team that was already like really stable, super stable, and just added an RBI machine to it. So there's nothing to their rotations. I think is only going to be better this year because that
mm,
young rotation's another year older.
yeah.
So like, there's nothing to not like about them. The only thing to not like about them is the fact that the White Sox have to open the goddamn season in
I love that
Houston.
that's happening too. That's just serendipity that Jose
Yeah,
Abreu moves there in free agency, and that happens to be the opening series
yeah.
between.
So yeah, go
That's
ahead. Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. The storylines are already being written for Thursday at 6:08 Central Time. So yeah, so we agree on the AL West. Finally, we agree again. So
Jesus, I think we've agreed on three of the five so far.
yeah,
So
let's move over to the NL West. So we can go a little bit quickly through the bottom. I don't see the Diamondbacks or Rockies doing much of
no.
anything. Um, the Giants are sort of like the Cubs, but not from
Mm,
a lack of trying. They were used by Aaron Judge, but
You
thought for a lot,
used me.
it looked like holy shit, we're gonna have Aaron Judge. That didn't happen. Then
Mm.
Carlos Correa is probably for good riddance that he didn't end up signing with them, but they tried to go that route. That didn't work out. So then they started to I feel like it turned into like the Billy Bean route. We're gonna make 35 home runs
Oh,
out
with
of
the aggregate.
the aggregate. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna get to this through these players, and you know what? Again, we mentioned, like you mentioned the Tiger Spring, whatever that means. But so we talk about spring training stuff not mattering, but one of the bright sides is coming out of the Carlos Correa disaster is the fact that they signed Michael Conforto, who I thought the White Sox were going to take a run at for right field originally, and he's had a fucking stellar spring. Now it's spring, but at the same time, this is a guy who
It's better than
hasn't
having
played.
a shit spring. So
Yeah, right. He's part of. He hasn't played baseball in a year and a half, so
yeah,
for him
that's
to have a
big.
good spring is a very good sign. So I think they'll be competitive, but I think it's going to be a similar result to last year. So we got two big dogs in the NL West. You got the Dodgers, who have an asterisk next to their name for winning the World Series in a shortened season. That's all they could pull
60-game world
together.
champs.
Yeah, that's all they could do with this powerhouse team. And then you have the Padres, who have done nothing. They're the NL West version of the Mets. They have nothing but spend, 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 and have not gotten the result. But I feel like what I said about the Blue Jays is the same thing here for the Padres. It's like if they can't win with this fucking team, then they're never going to win. They are never going to win without this team. So I'm picking the Padres for the NL West.
Wow. Well, we are going to end up with 4 out of the 6 division winners being identical because I think for the second or third year in a row, again, I am picking the San Diego Padres as you just have. You didn't buy my arguments the previous seasons just because the Dodgers look so good on paper. Dodgers have taken some hits. They lost Trey Turner to free agency. Gavin Lux, his replacement, blew out his goddamn
He
knee
gone.
in spring training. So they're not the juggernaut they once were. Somehow I think they're still going to be in the mix, but I've got San Diego just for the same reasons you said. They have the power. They have the money. They have everything that you would want a small market team like them to be doing. They've put the huge names out there. They've spent the money. I don't think they're going to stop spending money until they win this fucking division and win a World Series. This is what they do. So if they're struggling, at any point in the season, they're gonna add somehow. They're gonna trade away part of their more of their farm system to do what it takes to make sure they win this division. So I'm a believer. It's more that I love what they're doing. I forget they're like the 30th largest market in the country, and yet somehow they're spending the same amount of money as the big boys, getting those marquee names. So I love the theory of what they're doing. So that's probably why I'm always leaning towards them over the Dodgers. I hate the Dodgers, so I'm sick of the Dodgers. I love that they have an asterisk, as you mentioned, next to the one World Championship they won in this era. Even though they have seemed to have had every advantage over
Oh
every
my
other team
God.
in the major leagues and have not been able to put it together for a significant world championship as opposed to a 60 game world championship. It makes me laugh. That's one of my favorite things. As sad as the LA Angels make me, the demise of the LA Dodgers makes me equally happy. So I love it. The rest of the division, yeah, I see more of the same out of the Giants. Right there around 500 maybe. They swung and missed. You have to admire their efforts in the offseason, but it's almost like I've been making fun of the Cubs confusing activity with accomplishment. There's a lot of activity that didn't accomplish much in San
Right.
Francisco, but I don't think they're confusing it. I think they know exactly. They're not trying to sell the fans like, oh, we did all
No.
this, you should be happy.
Right. You're right.
So I guess I appreciate that a little more.
Yeah, they
So
never
that's
came
why.
out with a spend smartly campaign like the
Yeah,
Cubs did. They said
intelligent spending.
we tried to just spend, but it didn't work.
Yeah, I do. It is. You guys had such a fucked up offseason, with the Aaron Judge thing. You were totally used. It's obvious what he was doing, trying to leverage more money out of the Yankees, where he never wanted to leave, and he just used all of you and your fans. Got your hopes up. It's unfortunate. The weirdest thing that's we're not going to know for years to come, but what that Carlos Correa saga means for the Giants going forward. If he becomes what he potentially could be, if he stays healthy in Minnesota, then you're going to be lamenting that forever, that you backed away from it. Got San Francisco obviously got the cold feet, despite what pundits in New York had to say the night that they got him. They thought they got him signed away from the Giants. One of the funniest episodes of local sports media I can recall. I recounted those events in the last episode of In the Hole, but it's going to be interesting. We're going to be looking at that for years to come. How the performance of Carlos Correa and how it could shape the future of two different franchises.
Yeah.
I guess they're tied together by AJ Pierzynski too. So I never think of Minnesota and San Francisco as being tied together in any way, but in a baseball terms, Carlos Correa and AJ Pierzynski will always be uh, tethering those two franchises together. I'm not going to bother mentioning the rest of the division. So why don't we go ahead and move to our AL and NL MVP predictions?
We don't want to do wild card.
I keep forgetting to do that. I did this last year, I think, too.
Yeah, we're gonna
Let's
do
do
wild card and
backup.
then World Series
Beep,
matchup,
beep,
right?
beep.
Yeah.
Let's back up. We will go to our wild card predictions. I was thinking regular season's over, so we go right because the MVPs and Cy Youngs and Rookies of the Year all voted for the regular season, but it's better to do it for a podcast if we do it after our wild card and World Series predictions. So why don't you just tell me what your wild card predictions will be?
All right. For the AL, I've got the Seattle Mariners, the Chicago White Sox, and the stunner, maybe the Baltimore Orioles out of the AL East.
Okay, we actually had the exact same playoff pool if you put them all together, because the teams you didn't pick to win the division, I picked them to win the wild cards. It's almost the same. There might be one. Hold on, there's one that's different because I have Baltimore, Seattle, and Tampa making the wild card.
Okay, so you have no one from the AL Central making the wild card.
No, I guess that's the difference. Yeah, so I guess the difference is the White Sox. I have them win into the division. So no, what is the difference then?
Yeah, that is the difference.
I know,
because I have one from each division. You have two out of the AL East. So you have three teams from the AL East in the playoffs.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah. Let me help you.
Yeah, thank you.
I got it.
I've got the Braves.
Yeah.
In the NL.
Yeah.
I've got the Dodgers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was going to really throw things off by throwing in the Marlins out of nowhere as my final wild card. So I was hoping that would change things up so we couldn't have such similar predictions.
Well, I've got the Dodgers, the Marlins, and the Braves for the wild card.
All right. This might be the end of NostraDumbass predictions. If we keep that's crazy. I think that the only difference we have then in this whole thing is St. Louis and Milwaukee.
Yeah, St. Louis and Milwaukee and Guardians and the White Sox. I have Guardians winning the
Guardians. That's the big difference. Okay, yeah. I don't have them in the playoffs at all.
In fact, the only difference is our picks in the Central divisions.
Wow, that is crazy. Well,
let's see if this is if the AL and NL awards are any different.
Well, let's see our World Series predictions.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
My goodness, these better not be the same, but I am predicting the Toronto Blue Jays will face
not the Padres,
the San Diego Padres.
Ah!
You said it. I mean, these are franchises that need to get it done. I mean, this is the time. This is their time. Although I feel like somehow the Padres are going to keep spending and figure out a way to finally get there if they don't do it this year. But I think they're both going to get there. I am predicting The Blue Jays will win the World Series in 5 games over the Padres.
Well, now there's the difference.
Oh, we got a difference finally. Sweet.
I think the Padres are going to win it in a 7-game series.
All right, it all comes down to the Padres versus the
This
Blue
is
Jays for our bragging rights.
Yeah,
My God, this is lame.
this is like when you tie.
We should have scripted this out. We're making terrible predictions that are boring. If we had scripted this, we would be fine. We'd create controversy. We'd have something to bitch at each other about.
Well,
this sucks.
No. Here's the great part, everyone. Since this went so much like last year's, the best episode is going to be the review of our picks.
How far off we actually were, because we were terrible last year with our predictions, and even though we were almost in lockstep as we are again this year. So
yeah.
Well, maybe our individual awards predictions will be very different. They couldn't be the same, could they? Do you want to start with rookies of the? Let's start with rookies of the year. I think those are the most. I think those are interesting. There's no way we could have the same 2 guys.
All right, for my AL Rookie of the Year, I've got one Gunnar Henderson from the Baltimore Orioles.
I kind of knew that was going to happen because he's pretty much the consensus across all of baseball. He's number 1 everywhere. The third base / shortstop for the Orioles. 5-tool player.
Stud.
Yeah, that's part of why I've got the Orioles making the playoffs this year. Just there's so much talent coming through that organization.
Yeah,
they're awesome. Big. They're actually, it was working on the field. We saw it with the 31 game win improvement last year. So once again, we are the same. Please. Well, I know you're not going to pick mine. So go ahead and tell me your NL Rookie of the Year.
Jordan Walker, St. Louis Cardinals.
You kind of hinted.
I hinted at that. Yeah. So he's a beast. I think he's gonna jack about 25 home runs this year for them. So I think he'll be leading the pack there. I don't know if he'll get it done, but that's why I think that.
I think you're probably right. He's the consensus NL Rookie of the Year going into the season. I wanted to go way off the board, and I need to go even further off the board with everything from now on. But
well, don't sound like a complete idiot if you go that route.
I'm also going to be a homer, very much a homer with this.
I know who you're picking.
When Hayden Wesneski is going to be my NL
on that one.
My NL Rookie of the Year. His electric stuff has lit up spring training. He won so much so that he won the 5th starter role. There are many people that believe he might already be the Cubs' best pitcher, which you could look at in 2 completely opposite ways. That could be really good news or really bad news, considering the rotation. His stuff, it looks like he's throwing a fucking wiffle ball right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I did see some of that. Yeah,
he's impressive, and for the Cubs to get him by trading Scott Efros to the Yankees, it might be I did like Scott Efros a lot, but the way Hayden Wesneski is looking, this could be a very famous trade in Cubs history. So I'm going to be the homer and go with Hayden Wesneski as my NL Rookie of the Year.
Just a quick question. What do spring training stats equate to?
I'm not going to stats necessarily. You notice you did not hear me quote one stat. I was just looking at
that's right. He's throwing a wiffle ball. You're right. Yeah. I apologize. I digress. I was wrong to say that.
Yeah, don't you fucking question me.
But the stuff in spring training equate to stuff in the regular season.
Well, I mean, he's in that dry, thin air in Arizona. It's probably only going to get better once he gets to the thick air of Wrigley Field. Who knows? No, I don't know. But I was impressed. I thought it would be fun to make kind of a outside yet inside the box prediction like that. And at least we didn't pick the same fucking person. So I'm happy about that.
That's good. All right. What are we moving on to next there, Chief?
I think I'm going to make my AL MVP prediction.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I don't think you're ready for this. I'm going with one Yoan Moncada.
Whoa.
Out of nowhere.
You could have started NL like AL Comeback Player of the Year or something.
Well, he might win that as well, but we don't get that deep into predictions because that would be a 10-hour podcast, which we're
that we're
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 already at an
already
hour
an
and a
hour
half.
at.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That WBC performance really impressed you?
Well, it's amazing what you see out of Yohan Moncada when he actually cares about what's happening. Because when he applies himself, he gets 10 hits and 23 at bats to the tune of a 435 average over 12. I think it was a 1258 OPS.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
sick.
the dude's ridiculous when he just wants it. And maybe the embarrassment of last year, you know, I don't know. He has all the tools. Everything is there. He should be your goddamn MVP. And it's part of the frustrating part of the White Sox, how you've always been less than some of your parts over the last several years. The talent is there. The talent with Yohan Moncada is through the fucking roof. And it
Yeah.
just feels like he doesn't give a fuck. And when you see it, you know he gives a fuck. It's there. We just saw it. And if somehow that can translate that attitude, that fire, whatever he needs, maybe Pedro Grifol can get it out of him. But there is no reason Yohan Moncada can't be the AL MVP.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, and I'm here's what I'll say just real quick since you brought up a White Sox player, so I can't just be like, okay, Ryan, here's my pick.
It's your podcast too. You can say anything you want.
No, I know, but so I'm hopeful that part of his performance was because of like he went to the WBC with what Pedro Grifol has been preaching. And
Oh,
that
the
and
Oracle.
yes, like cuz look at all the White Sox players' performances in the WBC.
Yeah, it's all
Freaking
Grifol.
Ruiz was the closer for was it Mexico or Puerto Rico or something? But he did great as the closer, and he's like a guy you don't necessarily bring in high leverage situations. So whatever.
Well,
He is not my pick for AL MVP though.
oh, ye of little faith.
I'm going to go with the man who will play for two different teams this year. A very predictable pick. One Shohei Ohtani. He's only going to have a better season than he did last year, which is hard to believe. But watching what he did to his fellow teammate in the WBC made it pretty simple for me to pick that.
Yeah, that made an impression on me as well because I picked him not to win the AL MVP. I picked him to win the goddamn Cy Young as we jump out of order here briefly.
Oh,
but
whoa.
he's not gonna have the offensive year that Yohan Moncada will, but he will have the pitching year and win the Cy Young. So kind of we're picking the same person, but we are picking the same person for different awards.
Well, I'm telling you where you got it fucked up. Fucked up because Dylan Cease is going to totally destroy Shohei Ohtani and get the rightful crown he should have been more considered for last year. And get the AL more considered than he was.
Yeah, he had
AL Cy Young Award.
Couple shaky starts down the stretch that Verlander did not. That's the only reason. But yeah, he was right there. So he should be there once again. So that's not a bad pick, just not the right pick in my mind. But we didn't do NL MVP, so we should switch back to that quickly. I picked Trey Turner, of course, who should be on the Chicago Cubs if they had decided to spend the money that they have and chose not to get the best shortstop on the market. They chose to get the fourth best. Hopefully that works out for them. But Trey Turner on a great team, on a great offense. He lit it up in the WBC as well. It's clear he's the best shortstop in the league. He's in a great situation in that ballpark. He's going to win the NL MVP.
Well, he's not because Juan Soto is going to hit 50 home runs this year.
Wow, I think I picked him as I think I picked him as the MVP last year in the NL, but
yeah, I refused to because I knew the Nationals sucked. So I knew they wouldn't pitch to him was my theory last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, that was a big problem.
They have nowhere. You have to pitch to people again, the Padres. There's no easy out there. And
Yeah.
I think he's going to thrive in a full season with the Padres. So Juan Soto for the win.
There's the bourbon for you. Okay, we've got the NL Cy Young as our final prediction for the NostraDumbass 2023 prediction extravaganza. Who do you got?
Well, I got my pick from last year because he got off to a rough start that took him out at the beginning. But Corbin Burns, I think, is going to win the AL Cy Young.
Of course, that's exactly who I picked to win the NL Cy Young.
Oh, I said AL. Sorry, the
Well,
NL Cy Young.
it's
But we know
fine.
what
I've
we're
got your
going.
back because I picked the same motherfucker to do it. So because that's what we do. We pick the same fucking things.
No, we did
this.
though. The only two picks for the awards were the same. So
that's a lot. I don't think we had any last year. So considering our division picks are almost identical, at least our playoff picks are identical. It's unreal.
maybe we're just really smart this year.
Yeah, maybe we got them all right. So this is
Yeah.
the smartest podcast, but we got them all mostly wrong last year. So
fuck your negativity, Smith. This is, folks, you heard it. Get your money get your money, get on your FanDuel, get on your points bet. Make these picks now.
Well, if we haven't proved it in previous years, we will probably prove it once again how useless prediction shows are. At the same time, they're the most fun. This is always fun to do. I know you were looking forward to this. I was looking forward to more different picks, but I do like talking about our opinions about most every team in the league, a lot of the players throughout the league. So this is always fun to do. So especially after what your bourbon over there and me drinking my IPA over here. This is a good episode every year. Love that we're getting this out. It should be out to the people 24 hours before opening day. This is
Word Hole Media.